What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So a bill has finally passed. We need to address the Stopgap bill that passed today. Going to give you a little bit of a stimulus package update. Going to talk about the child poverty rate, how it actually increased over the past month, and I want to give you some daily news on Russia and Ukraine as well. Got a lot of stuff to go over, so let's get right into it. First, the government funding bill. This is that Stopgap bill. It finally passed. There's many different amendments that were made, and the majority of them were pretty much squashed. But the Senate, they did pass the House Stopgap bill, and they passed this afternoon with a vote of 65 to 27. Here's what this means. First, this means that the government will remain funded until March 11th. That is 3 weeks from tomorrow. This also means that Congress will need to continue negotiating to get the omnibus bill passed before then. But here's one of the things that we're hearing. One thing that Republicans have said over the past couple of days is that they don't want to continue passing continuing resolution bills because it puts more pressure on them, but also on the American people. What this does is this doesn't give Americans confidence when lawmakers have to keep coming back to the negotiation table every few months. So what we are hearing is that this could potentially be the final stopgap bill. And then the next one before March 11th will finally be the omnibus bill. This means President Biden will finally be able to create his own budget. But again, we're going to have to see what happens there, because what I can tell you is Republicans want to see that the vaccine mandates and any funding going to that is done away with. So, could create some issues, but at least we have 3 more weeks to get a deal done. I do want to touch on what Senator Richard Shelby said today, though. And he said, and I quote, "We're coming along. We're coming along. I think there's a good chance we'll make it. If we keep working in a bipartisan way, which we've been doing the last week or two, maybe we'll get there." This is good news, and I say this is good news for one reason. Republicans are now starting to work together, and Democrats believe at the same time that there has been so much progress recently that a deal is imminent. But here's what Senate aides are saying, and I think this is extremely important. Senate aides have stated recently that lawmakers are making progress, and with all this progress, they say the wheels have been turning and momentum is starting to be built. Now, I've said this before, and many lawmakers have said this in the past as well, is when we see one, even the smallest bill, when we see something pass and there's bipartisan support for it, what happens is that creates momentum for the next bill, a bigger bill, and a bigger bill. And finally, they can work together. But when Democrats and Republicans are just butting heads and they can't get anything done, that's where they'd have to take a step back and reevaluate their current stance and positions and then try to pass something smaller. And so that's what we're seeing at this point. Now, we've actually heard from multiple progressives over the past few weeks as well. This is something that I think is pretty important. Progressives feel that Congress is now on the same page as to pretty much where to go with any upcoming bills. Republicans have stated that they can't continue to support provisions that don't provide for the American people during these times. They say that the Build Back Better Act was once close to being passed, albeit without them, but it was close to being passed. But times are different now, and legislation must address the current situation. I've been saying this for the past probably 2 months, is that the Build Back Better Act, initially, it had very good provisions included. But the problem is, as times change, the bill has to be modified and adjusted as well. And we haven't seen that. But Republicans also said that the money spent on vaccine mandates should be repurposed. They're not saying don't spend it. They're saying it should be repurposed. And the money spent should go to other areas of the country that need more support. Now, earlier on today, I addressed how there's more stimulus, there's more assistance and relief still going out. One of the places that we're seeing more stimulus or relief is actually through rental assistance. Now, what I've also stated is that some states are going to be pulling their rental assistance. One, because either they have actually gone through all the applicants and they don't have enough applicants to send out the money to, or two, they actually are running out of money. So creates issues, but that it kind of sides with what Republicans are saying is let's repurpose money that we currently have. And we've seen lawmakers do this, especially with the American Rescue Plan, is they repurposed like $500 billion. So they've repurposed money before, and they can continue to do it again. But I want to know your thoughts on this. Do you think that money set aside to help fight COVID, should this be repurposed and spent on different areas of the country, or should it just be left behind and let be? And when these states or programs need this money, it will be there. I'm curious what your thoughts are. If you can answer down in the comment section below. My personal belief is, we should let the money sit, but if it's sitting for months and months and months and nobody's using it, and we know it's just going to sit there and have absolutely no value, then yeah, let's pull that and let's try to repurpose that money. But let's not try to repurpose this to these pet projects from either Republicans or Democrats. Let's try to repurpose it to something that will actually provide a difference to the American people and our country as a whole. But again, I'm not a lawmaker. And my opinion, honestly, it probably doesn't matter. But let's talk about Senator Joe Manchin. Now I want to talk about him for a moment because of one thing. Senator Joe Manchin and the White House, they both acknowledge that inflation is a major concern. Now, the St. Louis Fed, President James Bullard, he actually came out today and he said that yes, that right now much of the focus is on the notion that inflation is going to dissipate. But he worries that inflation is likely to go higher. This is the same worry that Senator Joe Manchin has. This is the same worry, according to reports, that the White House has, but is not going to come forward and say it. He also said that the Fed will need to do even more than what is currently being discussed to get inflation down. And that's an issue because what the Federal Reserve is already discussing is a huge change. It could potentially crash the markets. But again, the Fed doesn't care about the markets. They don't care about your portfolio. They care about the economy. Now, he also addressed the fact that keeping inflation stable is key. But we don't want to see inflation drop significantly, and we don't want to see it continue to rise. So right now, according to reports, lawmakers will continue to provide proposals to somewhat improve the American people's lives and the economy, but they actually have very little power at this point. That's the problem, is what Congress is proposing. Everybody's going to come out and say, well, what will this do to inflation? And nobody knows. And that's the issue. So every single proposal has the same argument, and the same argument has the same counter argument as, well, I don't know, but let's try it. So with that said, I want to provide you with some research that was done. This was actually done by Columbia, and they are saying that the child poverty rate has increased. And child poverty increased from 12.1% in December of 2021 to 17% in January 2022. This means in 1 month, we have seen over 3.7 million kids fall back into poverty. At 4.9% of kids fell back into poverty because, remember, the child tax credit payments, they expired in the middle of December. So between December and January, we saw rates spike. That's not great news. And I say this isn't great news because many lawmakers are trying to get additional stimulus or additional assistance out to those that really need it. And here's what they're discussing. That right now, we have seen President Biden promise so many things. We've seen Democrats promise so many things, but they can't get everything through. And a lot of it's because of two main things. One, because of inflation, and number two, which kind of ties into Joe Manchin, and number two, because of that $400,000 income limit, that people making under $400,000 will not see a penny more in taxes. But here's the issue. Everybody's paying more because of inflation. So inflation is causing people to pay more, not only for the products, but taxes as well. So right now, things aren't looking great, but at least the reports are that lawmakers are somewhat coming together and trying to come up with some type of solution. But let's get to the last thing for today. Russia is now reportedly bringing in more troops towards the border of Ukraine. They were previously stated to have about 100,000 Russian troops at the border. Well, in the past 2 days, they have actually called in more than 50,000 troops. So now the report is they have over 150,000 Russian troops stationed at the border. Now, these reports say that the only reason why Russia hasn't invaded and didn't invade yesterday is because the U.S. called them out. We heard the reports that Russia was going to invade on the 16th. They didn't do that. So the reports now are that Russia will invade in the coming days. Now, I promise I will bring you any of the reports or latest news that we see. What I can tell you right now is everybody's looking at the situation in Russia, situation in Ukraine. What's going to happen, because what happens there and how involved the United States gets, this is going to dictate many things. So as we get more information there, I promise I'll fill you in on latest news and updates, but that is what we know. All right. So just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.